The 2024 UCLA Bruins are a curious case that I'm not sure anybody can figure out what DeShaun Foster's bunch is going to do this year.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoff tournament Olympic season winds down. Sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But there's boosts and bonus open daily to all customers. Something for everybody. FanDuel.com right now to get started. Where we get started in this episode is the puzzling case that is DeShaun Foster's squad in 2024. And it's not that it's his squad necessarily. It's what do we expect from a UCLA team that has to travel across the country, that has arguably a top 10, top 15, worse or better, I think higher end, tough schedule, and trying to figure out how strong the Big Ten is in a year where UCLA does not play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan. They do go to Penn State on the road. They do go to LSU on the road. They have to take the extended travel to Hawaii, make another trip to Nebraska, go to Rutgers. So all that's going to add up. And when you have a home game against Oregon and a home game against SC, they're just naturally, for some reason, going to be the underdogs against those teams. So I was looking at some Fox Sports Power Rankings that were released on August 12th by R.J. Young, and UCLA slotted in as the 74th best team out of 134 FBS teams. So clearly not amongst the middle of the country, but let's take a step back. What does 74th best mean? Okay, now there's 82 teams that can make a bowl in the most recent season. In 23, only 79 teams were bowl eligible. 2 of those spots went to teams that were not yet D1 eligible, making the transition up. And another went to now Big Ten rival and a team on the schedule this year for UCLA in Minnesota, who was 5-7 last year, went bowling because of the APR scores. And they're projected higher than UCLA despite losing their quarterback. And their coach wanted to come to UCLA. Conflicting reports as to whether he wanted to come or UCLA spurned him, but he still wanted and attempted to go after the UCLA job. So this is where the Bruins are sitting 74th. It means the thought is they're supposed to go bowling, but they have a win-loss total of, depending where you look at it, if you look at a USA Today model, 4.5. If you look at another, it might be 5.5. It could be all over the place as to hit or miss whether they're going to hit that number. It's going to come down to winning at least 2 of 3 other non-conference games. But according to this model, Fresno State is more than 20 spots higher than UCLA. A team last year where Fresno started 5-0, they were rocking at 7-1, and then their quarterback play, their offense, defense faltered down the stretch, losing to San Diego State, a team who couldn't really score the ball. They put up 33 on Fresno State after the Bruins saw San Diego State couldn't do much against other teams as well. And their coach stepped away, so they have an interim coach. One of many coaches and teams that have kind of moving parts, where UCLA is a team that, yes, defensively, they're going to have possibly their issues, but they've been finding the plug-and-play guys for 24. The offense is stable, and they've got experienced coordinators who can recruit, and a QB1 that has clearly been announced. We'll talk about that in the second segment more. But a QB1 in Ethan Garbers with lots of talented offensive production, as long as they can learn the new system under what everybody seems to be a rock star of a hire of Eric Bieniemy, protecting the quarterback at all costs, a TJ Harden, who DeShaun Foster says has lost weight, looks more explosive, having learned the offense a little more, maybe more, even better run block schemes, in addition to just knowing you're the number 1 back this year. That's a team that looks like they're going to score points in a year after they had Chip Kelly as their head coach. It's an odd statement to say, but that's going to be the truth we expect in 2024. And LSU is supposed to be one of the 7 best teams in the country. Last year, they had the Heisman winner, rock star. They had offensive coordinator, top-tier receivers. They lost some of those. And yet they're trying to replace a defensive coordinator that gave up 28 points per game. When I was reading that Fox Sports projections, he went over all the teams in some detail, which is a hard thing to do across the country. But even he pointed out LSU couldn't stop anybody defensively. Gives me a little hope that UCLA can put up some fight in Baton Rouge this year. I'm not going to pull the upset, call that right now. But every team is coming with their deficiencies this season. And I'm still not so sure why we believe UCLA is the 74th best team in the country. It means they're going to go bowling, so that would mean they would beat their projection. But then you look at other projections based on a team comparison model, UCLA could get up to 8 wins this year, right? According to USA Today. So I'm trying to wrap my head around a team that has probably more stability on offense with a very talented offensive coordinator who is coached at the highest of levels and the best of players, a quarterback that seems to be separating himself from the pack as he should, leadership-wise, QB1, and it's a battle for number 2. Clear starters at nearly every position and depth offensively. The only question mark is the offensive line, where the injuries don't seem as bad as they were in the open practice on the Saturday, just a limited ankle, and everything seems to be okay with Carlin and DeGiorgio. Mackey Award seems to have taken that starting spot on the right side of the offensive line. And now the big question mark is defense. And in college football, if you could score some points, run the rock, kill some time in the new timing era of college football where first downs don't result in clock stoppages, then I think UCLA can compete this year. Not for a Big Ten championship, not for everything, but it still is a unique team because the miles for a team that could still be very talented might catch up to them later in the year. Maybe not as much as Mick Cronin on the basketball side is worried of things when it comes to March, or Corey Close for her team when it comes to traveling across the country. They start the season in France, come back, and then Big Ten play and all that. So they might have their big log jam when it comes to March Madness and the tournament. And other sports that will have to travel as much. Football gets the nice chartered planes, nice food. They get generally the best amenities of any sport, pretty much, unless you're a basketball school or your school has just so much money, right? UCLA Public UC, football is probably going to get a good chunk of that, while other teams, and I think other sports are starting to get chartered flights. Football's been that way for a very long time. That's most cases in college football. Now, to see UCLA is just ahead of Northwestern, just behind Old Dominion. They have them slotted behind Cal, and it's a puzzling case behind Justin Wilcox. Is the defense going to be good? Is Jade not going to lead them? And then I'm reading the preseason prognostications for Cal. They're supposed to have one of the toughest transitions into conference contention in this day and age of conference realignment heading to the ACC. I'm sitting there thinking, UCLA misses Ohio State. They miss Michigan. They're the two of the three toughest teams, right, when it comes to Oregon and USC in Pac-12 rivalry into Big Ten. They get those games at home. Washington, on this, they're expected to be behind UCLA, and that's Jed Fish, who surprises a lot of folks. He has some talent out there, looking to replace the talent Washington lost from their national championship team heading to the college football playoff national championship game, and Kalen DeBoer leaving. So now you look at it, if you're going to go to Montlake, that might be more of a winnable game. Now that you take a look at it, you've got winnable games at home like Minnesota. Iowa will be tough, though. Invade the Rose Bowl, that's something. Nebraska with the freshman quarterback. LSU replacing defensive coordinator just like UCLA at Hawaii. There's more games on the schedule that look winnable, closer to the 6-win total. That would kind of make or break a truly successful season this year, and put themselves well within this extremely wide mark of teams that could and should go bowling, despite the travel, despite all the doubters, despite the we're in LA. Well, I think we're in LA. The Bruins are being overlooked. Doesn't mean that they can't go 3-9. They certainly well could if things go completely awry this year, which is going to make this season very, very interesting to watch, right? You think of the curious case of Benjamin Button. Not that actually applies to this UCLA team, but just that title. The curious case of UCLA football in 24. I think they could go bowling. That's what this says, but the over-under win-loss total says no. the more I look at it, it's looking likely UCLA can surprise not to 8, 9 wins, unless they want to be a TCU a couple of years ago, come out of nowhere. But this is a team I think that should compete and I think make UCLA fans proud and make us all proud and score points if they can pin down the Eric Bieniemy offense, which should look a lot better with Garbers the clear number one and some talented wideouts and a very specific tight end that got shout out from DeShaun Foster. Next, on Locked On UCLA. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championship is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so this UCLA team in 24 is somewhat of a curious case, but they're going to be led by offense. Despite the open practice on Saturday that was won by the defense, it was back and forth to the end. UCLA has a clear number one cut starter, and it's Ethan Garbers, and that's pretty much how it was. Despite a little, media play there by DeShaun Foster the other day saying, hey, maybe every spot is for an open competition. Well, yes, every position has somewhat of an open competition because you can put yourself in the right spot for if somebody goes down. Maybe you're competing for a starting spot. Or in this case, in the UCLA quarterback room, everybody's competing for number two. And despite DeShaun Foster saying all the quarterback spots being open or trying to, make that something, Garbers, who completed close to 60+% of his passes, 67% of his passes last year, threw for over 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, became the clear-cut leader at the end of the season for UCLA in 23 and was the clear projected starter. All it did was take in the mantra of DeShaun Foster of do more, which was written in the LA Times article by Ben Bolch. Do more, learning the Bieniemy style, pulling away from the rest of the quarterbacks. DeShaun Foster said, yes, he's pulled away. He's been the clear leader. He's been vocal. Bieniemy even said he's been leading and putting installs in the summer when there wasn't official team practices. And, of course, coaches are going to talk big about their quarterback when they can. But Garbers has been that leader. They rallied around him in the LA Bowl against Boise State, who had quite the story with their Mountain West surge after they fired their head coach midseason. It was the UCLA quarterback who won that bowl game, coming in at the end, right? And now you've got a UCLA team that is ready to rumble with a quarterback that is looking really good. According to the open, practice, reading different things, the LA Times put Garbers looked really good. And maybe it's something after they struggled with quarterback play last year. And yes, Garbers had his rough moments. He didn't look that strong against Coastal Carolina week 1 last year. And when Dante threw a perfect couple of spirals deep one to J. Michael Sturdivant, we were all chanting Dante like I was last year. Yes, I was doing it preseason, a little bit in season. But even week 1, it was back and forth. But one of the things Chip Kelly that did say that was wise, though, even if we don't want to agree with anything, what players are going to do generally based in practice. And maybe there was a reason Garbers won the starting job, and a little nerves, a little bit of lack of opportunity, but when Morth showcased a little bit of talent, but then, got a little skittish with some pressure and a pick 6 against Utah, things slowly unraveled. And when the season wore on, Garbers earned that spot back. And clearly the team responded when he was the starter, the veteran signal caller, and made the play. And when it comes to being locked in on all the plays, Garbers is looking pretty good. Yes, I know in the spring game, I'm pretty sure the first play was almost picked off and it was dropped. But UCLA is going to be good with Garbers at quarterback. Now, 10 win good, whatever it may be, but the quote from UCLA tight end Moliki Matavao is one thing is we're going to the Big Ten championship. That's our goal. The ultimate dream, to shock everybody, go to the Big Ten championship, which would be crazy. And I think would be, for UCLA to do that, would be one of the more shocking turnarounds. And that would be close to what I think a TCU did a couple of years ago. I don't think there's anything else with more playoff rounds, which means UCLA would have to win as many games. But that's besides the point. So Moliki Matavao, who DeShaun Foster praised after the open practice, talked about that's one of the targets UCLA is going to have to hit with the Loyas, the Sturdivants, the Rico Flores Juniors, tied as Mokia Atamalalas, right? Beyond the explosiveness of their running back in TJ Harden, who seemingly, according to reports, looks better and better and better after sluggish starts in spring ball and adjusting to the new offense, the new role as number one running back. It's all looking towards a position where there isn't so much depth. DeShaun Foster had to attack the portal despite having what we believe to be a clear 1 and 2 at tight end with Matavao, the Oregon transfer, somebody who can go catch some passes. Didn't really break the bank when it came to crazy stats, but in 23, appeared in every game, started in nearly half of those, over 280 receiving yards, 20 yards per catch on 14 receptions, so he was a deep down the field threat, couple of touchdowns, and had 76 yards on 3 catches in a win against Washington State when the Bruins upset the Cougars, and a couple of touchdown catches against Colorado, against Stanford. And last year was an honorable mention in the Pac-12, right? In what was supposed to be a Pac-12 that was pretty stacked at the tight end position. I know Utah had a couple of guys go down to injury. He made his name known after transferring over from Oregon, which was a good Chip Kelly steal at the tight end position via the transfer portal. Now, with talent limited, UCLA potentially going to 2 tight end sets, the blocking ability is going to be crucial for UCLA if they're a little limited on the offensive line. Josh Carlin was a little uncertain with DeGiorgio a bit banged up, but DeShaun Foster confirming he's okay. You wonder how the center transition is going to do with Sam Yoon, who was taking spot snaps for Carlin, I believe, at center. It will be an interesting little mix there. But the idea is that the Henderson, Nevada native and Matavao can be a complete player. He's not going to go down and just catch passes. It's his pass blocking grade. His blocking grade from Pro Football Focus was 72 as a freshman. All right. And that earns you time in an Oregon system that needs some blocking and became very physical. Comes to UCLA, was a key part of a team that needed some depth at tight end and still needs some depth. And he will be the clear number 1. But he was tabbed as a Mackey Award watch list. And DeShaun Foster believes he can truly compete for an award that was, yes, a runaway last year for Brock Bowers. Okay? Now, I'm not sure there's a Brock Bowers in the country this year, so that should be more of an open spot. And Matavao isn't that. Here, though, he has an opportunity to make some things happen. If he can go out, and if he's catching 20 yards per pass, adding to the blocking scheme and being a more physical front when UCLA does use 2 tight end sets, if they want to split them out wide, whatever it might be that can trick opponents, it's an Eric Bieniemy system that can do a little bit of everything from going spread, 5 wide, very physical, to match with the physical brand of Big Ten football. Matavao, standing 6'6", big talented tight end, is somebody who can make it happen. 2'6", he's a senior. He's been around the block for years. This is a leader at a position where he needs to ball out to help UCLA significantly. And he is looking like that. With Garbers, that could be a fun connection. He has many places to throw the ball to, but Matavao is one of them with a nice tight end, expected for an even increased role in breakout 2024 campaign. Breakout roles for those 2 guys, and UCLA will score points and would be on the trend to going bowl eligible. And what Matavao said, quote, our goal is the Big Ten championship. That's the goal. Shock everybody. Now this is my quote. Shock everybody, get to the Big Ten championship, which would be in a divisionless era of Big Ten football where you don't play Ohio State, Michigan still. It'd still be very shocking. Okay. But it would be entertaining nonetheless to see UCLA competing for one of the best spots. Not sure that's where they're headed. They're predicted to be in the bottom half of the FBS, but still in that bowling range, while win-loss totals don't reflect that. And this is a fun team where following them all season will create good stories, fun times, and quite a bit of drama. All right. Meanwhile, we look to next year, 2025, rounding out the 25 commitment class when scholarships expected to go through the roof. What does that mean for special teams and scholarships? And what is UCLA trying to put an emphasis on now that Chip Kelly is gone and he doesn't care about special teams? DeShaun Foster, he's spot on. Next on Locked On UCLA. It's easy to say now that love sports. You don't want them to stop. Olympics are over. Soccer tournaments are over. Playoff season's been long over. And now we're heading into the nitty-gritty part of the summer, the dog days of August. Well, even though there's fewer sports, fewer games, FanDuel can let me keep the sports going whenever I want. Open up the app, dream up bets anytime I want, anytime you want, and whenever you're in the mood. All customers can get a booster bonus daily with FanDuel, for something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Head on over to FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, cruising on here into this segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast, Final One. We're going all football today, talking about some 25 recruits that committed to UCLA, and some of it coming and resulting from offers from that barbecue family friend weekend, right, where they brought to the recruits to the pool, had a barbecue, threw some offers out there, and a business trip with the barbecue resulted in some UCLA commits. What does that mean? UCLA got 2 commits for their 25 class. One includes Lennox Miller, punter out of Oaks Christian, and Ashton Zamani, who is a top-tier kicker, one of the best in California, and is a 5-star kicker. Now, you're going to look at the rankings, and you're not going to see that because 24/7 Sports, unless it's literally the best kicker that's ever existed or on 3, they're not going to put lots of prospectus on that. But when you look at like Chris Saylor kicker academies and all those things, they have the long snapper. They rate these guys 5 stars in terms of who expects to start as a freshman, sophomore, at what level, and where they're developing. And this is a guy who is top 10 in his class, an offer from Oklahoma, GPA over 4.2, was evaluated fairly recently at the end of July, and is somebody who is expected to be challenging for the UCLA kicking job. Now, UCLA did go get a Cal kicker. They did get Glester in the portal last year. And for Zamani, looking at his numbers, was a kickoff champion in the class of 24, 25, and 2020 Vegas, was a kickoff champion in 21 Vegas for the class of 24, 25, was a punt champion in the class of 25, top 12 camp selection in 24. He can do a little bit of both. And last year, long of 41 as a junior, 7 of 9 making his field goals, so pretty good percentage at high school, had the top touchback rate in all of California. What does that mean? 64 touchbacks and 80 kickoffs. So he had the best touchback rate in all of California, which that's a lot of kickers, that's a lot of weather, that's a lot of craziness. But this kid, through all the players in California, had the best touchback rate. And with kickoffs changing and whatever that means, you see how it goes in the NFL and how that might sprinkle in to the college game, eventually the high school game. It might make its way further down after it was, in the UFL, XFL, whatever the rules were. It's important to focus on the game, right? This is what the player review from ChrisSaylorKicking.com says. Outstanding high school kicking prospect, good-looking athlete, live leg, excellent job on field goal, strength, pure ball off the ground, and has 55-plus yard range. Wow, that's big time. Averages 65-plus yards with 4+ seconds of hang time, and his best ball can measure up to 70 to 75 yards. Capable punter, although we'll talk about the punting in a minute, and he excels under pressure, and he's looking ready to dominate his senior season. Great attitude, good work ethic, excellent prospect offer now. That was the player review from this. And, of course, they're trying to get these guys scholarships. They're trying to do all these things. You can only do so much. but excellent reviews, has accomplishments, and the numbers speak for himself. Combo guy that can both kick and punt. We're seeing a little bit less of that. Barmira did do that for UCLA before he transferred out for his last year to Mississippi State. But the Bruins are placing an emphasis, and I wonder, you don't always get scholarships to the kickers and punters because you want to save that, but with almost everybody in the roster can get a scholarship, you'll wonder how many more kickers and punters are going to get scholarships and not need NIL or, right? It hasn't placed an emphasis on offers, and UCLA, according to this place, has a preferred walk-on offer right now. But with so many extra scholarships you can add, where are those going to go? Can you go offer a scholarship to the kicker and say, come here, we're going to put you on scholarship? Well, you got to guess right on the kicker or the punter. Or are you going to go place that on all the best players and hope that the kickers come to your school, depending on what schools are offering 100 scholarships for 100 spots in when all the scholarship increases happen pretty soon? Okay, so UCLA also has Lennox Miller, kid out of Oaks Christian, actually prepped for quite a bit at Campbell Hall before they dropped their high school football program earlier this year in 2024. Goes to Oaks Christian now and is expected to have a big-time senior season. Was offered at that kickoff barbecue or the recruit barbecue. 2 weeks later, commits to UCLA, and now the Bruins have themselves a punter. Right? This is a guy who's an Australian native and is a big-time commit in their 2025 class. I was reading an article right now, but it says class of 26. He is the class of 25 commit, 6'4" punter, so big boy, very raw. And here's the thing that's unique. He wanted to make the decision early for sure, have a base and knowing where he wanted to go. Love the coaches. Remember, UCLA switched up who the special teams coordinator is. They want to put an emphasis on a third of the game that can help steal some victories, right? You're going to look and lament. Think of Cal against Auburn. They missed so many kicks. Think about how many times UCLA went for it last year instead of kicking field goals, like at Utah, like against Arizona State. Games that were winnable, one score, should have been one-score games. And they had to go for it deep in opponent territory because they can't put 3 on the board, right? Kicking the field goals and scoring points, pinning teams deep. Kickoff return coverage, punt block coverage, right? Kickoff coverage, all important things. But if you can keep punting, blasting it through the back of the end zone, keep him at the 25 until the kickoff rules change. Punt coverage, right? You got a guy who can blast it, even though he might be, a little raw of a prospect like Lennox might be, newer to the game of football, specifically as a punter the last year or two. Those are big things. So you got a combo kicker punter expected to be the kicker. You got a guy who's got a big body, and this is what it says. I wasn't even on the radar until a year ago. And then his coach saw he was raw, figured out the steps, and something is going to lock in. This is what Lennox Miller was telling in the article to 24/7 Sports about how he grew, continues to prove, wanted to play at a big school, is a top-tier prospect who is now going not so far from home, even though he's an Australian native, coming over to the U.S. to the California side of things. So the Bruins shoring up with the class of 25 looks, although their 25 commitment class has slowly fallen to 40th, and that would mean it's probably closer to the bottom of the Big Ten. UCLA still has the talent. Madden Iamaleava can still crawl up maybe to a 5-star. We'll see what his high school teammate or what Jaden Hudson might do. We'll see what his teammate might do as well. Jace Brown is his high school teammate. Maybe Weston Port turn to a 4-star. Carson Cox, a running back, expected to be a top tailback. A couple of these guys are on the edge of 3 to 4-star status, which could vault UCLA to a top-tier 25 class. But I'm still confident this class looks much better than the ruins Chip Kelly left in 23, despite getting Dante Moore. And in 24, where he just left it in shambles, and DeShaun Foster to pick it up and put together some semblance of a class that was very wide-ranging in talent from top to bottom. Okay, but this 25 class, hard commits, California local, going after places that Chip Kelly would only go after the portal. UCLA cares about what they need. All right, and that's important for what the Bruins are doing in this 24 season and the 25 recruiting cycle. Welcome to the commitments, Lennox Miller and Ashton Zamani, kicker, punter, fun stuff. They care about it, right? And that's where DeShaun Foster and the details, the emphasis, the energy they bring to practice, he brings to practice. the talent he has all around, it looks like a different vibe. Now, I just hope it translates to wins and losses in this 24 season. A lot of wins. And according to the preseason prognostications, not bowling, but I'm feeling positive, maybe a little bullish on that. All right. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.